Between the hills, the stars, the sky, the river so clear, river so clear.
As we deepen into our service, let us set the tone for this service with a reading In Need of Healing by Reverend Maureen Killoran. Welcome, you who come in need of healing, you who are confused, have been betrayed. Instead of answers, here you may find safety for your questions. Instead of promises, may you find community for your struggles. We join Unitarian Universalists all over the world in lighting our chalice. This chalice, which is a symbol of the spark of life in each of us, the chalice lighting words this morning are entitled A Chalice Lighting for When Things Aren't Okay by Reverend Molly Brewer. My beloved people, I cannot pretend, and so I will not tell you, that everything is okay right now, that there is no reason to be angry, that you must be optimistic or at peace. I cannot pretend these things, so I won't tell you them to you. But now our chalice is lit, so all I ask in this moment is that we remember the words of Rebecca Parker. There is love holding us, there is love holding all. By the light of our chalice, let us rest in this love.
We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share, until when gladness we find now in our living, we sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear. We gather together to join in a journey, confirming, committing our passage to be a true affirmation in joy and tribulation. When bound to human care and hope, then we are free. We gather together in joyful thanksgiving, acclaiming creation whose bounty we share. Oh, sorrow and gladness we find now in our living. We sing a hymn of praise to the life that we bear.
This morning's program, You Can't Jail a Revolution by Fred Hampton. In honor of Black History Month, today we will be viewing a video about Fred Hampton, someone you may not be familiar with, but who was an active player in the civil rights movement. In 1968, I would have been a sophomore in high school, Hampton joined the Illinois Black Panther Party, where he served as chairman until his assassination in 1969. There are many misconceptions about Hampton and the Black Panther Party, and so today we would like to take some time to learn more through this video and discussion about the civil rights movement than we have been traditionally taught. The life and death of Fred Hampton have left an indelible mark on the civil rights movement and American history. During Hampton's time as chairman, he played a key role in implementing the party's community service programs, combating police brutality, and organizing rallies and protests to demand accountability for officers who abused their power. One of Hampton's most significant achievements was the formation of the Rainbow Coalition, a groundbreaking alliance between Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, a Puerto Rican revolutionary group, and the Young Patriots, a white working class organization. The Rainbow Coalition represented a radical departure from the prevailing view of the Black Power movement as a separatist and exclusionary force. Hampton recognized that the fight for racial justice was intimately connected to the broader struggle against economic inequality and political disenfranchisement. By bringing together groups that had historically been at odds, he hoped to create a united front against the systematic injustices that affect all oppressed communities. Despite his young age, at the time of his death, Fred Hampton's legacy has endured for decades. His vision of a united, multiracial movement against oppression and injustice continues to inspire activists and organizations today. Hampton's commitment to serving his community, his ability to bring people together across racial and class lines, and his unwavering dedication to the cause of liberation have made him an enduring symbol of resistance.
Of oppressed brothers and sisters of every color.
Neutralize him by any means necessary.
If you popped into a typical American classroom during Black History Month, you might think that the civil rights movement is made up of just a handful of people. Martin Luther King Jr., of course. Rosa Parks is there too. John Lewis and Selma, and maybe a brief mention of Malcolm X.
The Deputy Chairman of the State of Illinois, Black Panther Party, Fred Hampton.
You probably didn't learn much about Fred Hampton. A Chicagoan with Southern roots who was building a coalition made up of Black Chicagoans, white Southerners from Appalachia, Latino immigrants, and even Chicago street gangs, up until the point he was killed by police in 1969. Some argue that's why he was killed. This is the story of how a young Black leader united a city of activists and the government's efforts to unravel it. Even though we had plenty of color photography at the time, we tend to look at the civil rights movement in Black and white photos, and mostly in the South. We rarely talk about how the movement inspired groups around the country. But the national movement was really a series of loosely connected local movements all across the country. Groups like the SCLC, the NAACP, and the Black Panther Party offered national support, messaging, and resources for homegrown movements.
Can't move without you. We can't move. We can't move without the people.
Hampton grew up in the suburbs of Chicago. After college, Hampton became an organizer for the NAACP in the Chicago suburbs. He helped residents understand their rights in the face of brutality and gain access to social and educational resources.
Because if they don't have an education, then they're nowhere. You dig what I'm saying? They're nowhere because they don't even know why they're doing what they're doing.
The Black Panther Party, founded in Oakland by Bobby Seale and Huey P. Newton, had begun developing chapters around the country in 1968, just a few months after Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis. Following the passage of the Voting Rights Act of 1965, King had turned toward a national movement, a poor people's campaign to unite the working class of all backgrounds in a push for better wages, healthcare access, housing, and more. Chicago was one of his prime organizing targets. It was the second largest city in the country and home to violent segregation. Hampton and the Black Panthers picked up the torch from King.
Now, we say all power to all people. We say white power to white people. Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people. X power to those that we left out. We say Panther power to the Vanguard Party.
A captivating speaker, he convinced Chicago gangs to form a non-aggression pact. He even reached out to Latino groups like the Young Lords to find common cause. And shockingly, he found unity with a group of neo-Confederates.
What we have to do now is pull ourselves together into a functioning group of people who can go out and rebel against them.
The Young Patriots were basically the hillbilly version of the Black Panthers. When Hampton's family moved north during the Great Migration, thousands of poor whites were also flocking to northern cities for work. They didn't face the same racial discrimination as Black migrants, but they did confront extreme poverty and regional prejudice. They used the Confederate tool to recruit Southern expats, but then joined them in anti-racist mission with the Black Panthers and the Young Lords. Hampton brought together the Rainbow Coalition, uniting each of these groups in a campaign again to address poverty and housing, health access, corruption, and police brutality. Now, if you're charismatic enough to get folks waving the Confederate flag to march for civil rights, people are going to pay attention to you. Sometimes the wrong people. Throughout most of the civil rights movement, the FBI conducted counterintelligence programs against its leaders and organizations, also known as COINTELPRO. Today, access to FBI files show major efforts against King, Malcolm X, and the Black Panthers. J. Edgar Hoover was obsessed with breaking up any collective movement for Black rights. As Hampton rose in the ranks of the Black Panthers, and especially as he began to unite various groups in Chicago, he also became a target.
And why they want to get rid of me? Because I'm saying something that might wake up some other exploited people and some other oppressed people. And if all these people ever get together, then these pigs that are exploiting us, we'll be able to run them into the lake. That's why they want to get rid of us.
The FBI set up undercover operations, disseminated misinformation, sowed distrust, and encouraged violence amongst the Panthers and other members of the Rainbow Coalition. Their operatives published anti-white cartoons under the name of the Black Panthers to anger the Young Patriots. Violence spread throughout the city. In late 1969, Hampton flew to California for a national meeting of the Black Panthers. While he was gone, 2 police officers were killed during a shootout between the Panthers and the Chicago PD. After he returned home, the FBI encouraged a police raid on the apartment he shared with his fiancée, who was pregnant with their child.
Like the masses, I was in awe when I first laid eyes on all the things you are.
An undercover agent drugged Hampton so he wouldn't wake up. And on December 4th, Chicago police broke into Hampton's apartment. Some eyewitnesses claim they heard police verbally identify Hampton before shooting him in the head at point-blank range. 4 other people in the house were shot, beaten, and dragged into the streets. Police claim the next day they fired in self-defense.
The immediate, violent, criminal reaction of the occupants in shooting at announced police officers emphasizes the extreme viciousness of the Black Panther Party.
But a later investigation found that police fired somewhere between 90 and 99 shots. The Panthers fired only once, and that was from a fallen shotgun. Hampton's death has been called a murder and an assassination. Years later, Cook County reached a settlement with the survivors and Hampton's mother. The Rainbow Coalition lived on in various forms, but the FBI had succeeded in creating discord and distrust. The civil rights movement lost another powerful voice. Fred Hampton was only 21 years old. But you should know about the coalition that Chairman Fred Hampton built and the hundreds of other stories that make up the civil rights movement. Because it's not just Black history, it's American history.
You can murder a liberator, but you can't murder liberation. You can murder a revolutionary, but you can't murder revolution. And you can murder a freedom fighter, but you can't murder freedom.
That you can jail a revolutionary, but you can't jail a revolution. Bang. You might run a liberator like Harris Cleave out the country, but you can't run liberation out the country. You might murder a freedom fighter like Bobby Hutton, but you can't murder freedom fighting. And if you do, you'll come up with answers that don't answer, explanations that don't explain. You come up with conclusions that don't conclude. We say all power to all people. We say white power to white people. Brown power to brown people. Yellow power to yellow people. Black power to black people.
You know, I had no idea this stuff was going on. In high school, in North Dakota, in Mott, I was isolated. And none of this stuff really came up that I can remember. At this point, we'll just take any comments or, well, don't ask me any questions. But any comments, if you remember this time and what your experiences might have been?
I was a teenager, I was in college when this all started, when Martin Luther King became known. And the issues that were arising amongst the women were becoming more prominent, but that didn't get enough attention until at the end when Martin Luther King was killed. But the women in that organization were clearly wanting rights that the coalition wasn't talking about. And that's where women began to have the rights that we didn't have. In the late 60s, women couldn't have anything in their name. They couldn't have a credit card in their name unless they were single. They couldn't borrow money unless their husband signed for it. They couldn't get divorced without some kind of damage to one person or the other. Those are at least three of those things. And they couldn't, we could not have any kind of utilities in our name. They had to be in our husband's name. So when I finally went back to grad school and got on my own, I had to argue with the people that run the utilities companies that I could have it in my own name. And they said, well, you don't have any history. That was the other thing. And so I said, well, you got that wrong. And if I need to, I will bring suit through women's rights movement. I can't remember what we had, the Ninth Amendment or whatever it was. So there was a lot of overlap that women got that didn't start out as freedom for women. It was freedom for men, more so.
So my mother was in college when Martin Luther King was assassinated. For a little context, my mom grew up Unitarian. Her parents were very liberal. They were very much in favor of the civil rights movement. But she's also white and from Oklahoma. And she was visiting New York City at the time. And she heard the news and she was terrified to ride the subway because she thought the black people were going to riot and she might get hurt. And I just think that says something about how extensive the propaganda was to make people think that that was something they needed to be afraid of. Because my mom is not the kind of person who would normally express that kind of, what to me is really racist thought. But I don't think she ever questioned it because that's just what she thought was going on.
The Black Power movement was key, as you probably saw in there, but it was key in the beginning of the Brown Berets and AIM, and it gave voice to so many people. And I don't know, I wish that we had known. Again, I was in high school when all this was happening blissfully in Martin, South Dakota, and amazingly enough, that didn't come up there either. So, except my mom was, I'm gonna thank my mom. We were very tuned into it and knew what was happening and heard what was happening on the news, but these details just didn't come out for the longest time. And I was 40 years old before I knew that about the Black Power movement and what they did. So it was they had some really incredible leaders, and they created incredible. They brought forward other incredible leaders in other coalitions. So
Well, must be one of the older people in the group. In 1968, I was a student at the University of Minnesota. And at that time, Father Grappi was working with the Black people in Milwaukee. And some busloads of us, people from Minnesota, went down to Milwaukee to walk in support of Father Grappi.
I'm not from North Dakota, and you know what I can see so far is this definite dislike and anger towards Native American populations, which is awful to see, but how else has racism and those things evolved in this community? Because as a white person, I don't see it, and I don't have the history, the background to know.
I'm also not from North Dakota. I'm originally from upstate New York. Upstate New York was very unpopulated at the time. The place that I grew up in was a very small town. And what you're saying with North Dakota, when I moved out here, I moved out from a more populated area, closer to the city. And I worked with all nationalities. But when I moved out here, I'm half Italian, half French, and I was a minority. And so what I did is, and I've been here 36 years now, what I did is really try to always welcome everybody, and that's why I'm here. We can't change other people's views, but we can change how we react to other people. And that's why I've been trying to do all these years, because I've always wanted, when I moved out here, there were very, very few blacks. And I mean, it was a white community. And I said, oh my gosh, what is this? And I didn't know what I was getting myself into. But now we have such diversity. I'm loving it. And I feel very welcomed here. And I think other people are starting to feel more welcomed. Yes, the Native Americans have had a bad rap, definitely. And I hope someday we can overcome that too.
I'm grateful to be here, and my emotion right now is joy for the conversation of this, because the first part of I'm turning this way just because I'm kind of nervous right now, just understand that. The first part of healing any type of intergenerational trauma that any of this has brought to anybody of color, whether it be the indigenous, Black people, Mexican, anybody, is acknowledging it. And that's the first thing that we need to do to start that healing. So it's really good to hear that, because the conversation, because that's what my business is all about, is healing the intergenerational trauma, not to carry on the hurt and pain or anger or anything like that, but to get rid of it, to heal in it, and to let it go and be happy in diversity and live together. So it's really good to hear the conversation. I'm full of joy. And they did free Leonard Peltier, so I just wanted to say that, because he also is part of those same groups like that, and he has been freed. So I'm real glad that has happened. It's been a real nice, wonderful piece of news. Thank you for having me here, and thank you for listening.
I just want, this time is so frustrating, right, and scary, newly scary for some of us. And I just want the whole piece of, you can kill the revolutionary, but you can't kill the revolution, and that, that is what I want to have brought forward, not the trauma, not the all of that pain, but to build off of that and to maintain that, each of us has the power within us to make this a better place by not giving up, by paying attention, and, reaching out to people that you might not otherwise reach out to. Anyway.
Well, I'll end with one final comment here. So much of this is passed on from one generation to the next. And this comment is directed to the parents. My dad, my father, he had a simple philosophy that he taught us, and we all have grown up with it. The enormity of the reverberations of a little kindness, they travel a long distance. So parents, when you're teaching your children, teach them with a little kindness. We extinguish the chalice with these closing words by Sarah Eileen Lawal. Out of the flames. Out of the flames of fear, we rise with courage and our deepest convictions to stand for justice, inclusion, and peace. Out of the flames of scrutiny, we rise to proclaim our faith with hope to heal a fractured and hurting world. Out of the flames of doubt, we rise to embrace the mystery, wonder, and awe of all there is and all that is yet to be. Out of the flames of hate, we rise with the force of love, love that celebrates our shared humanity. Out of the flames, we rise. Go in peace. Thank you.